Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Comicbook Time podcast for July 31st, 2013. I will be your host, Aaron. It's time to review the comic books that come out every single Wednesday. Here's the deal. There are comic book covers on the screen, and there are annotations. If you click on the comic book covers, it will take you to that specific comic book review in this podcast. If you just want to see every single comic book review in this podcast, just keep on watching. And that's what you got to do. Our first issue of this podcast is Sex issue number 5. So let's see how Joe Casey's newest Image series goes this week. So the comic opens up with the events of what happened in the last issue, which I think it's still the night out with Warren and Simon, and Warren is trying to get Simon laid because his best friend is kind of going through I want to call Simon Cook his phase in life. I think he's going through a fucking depression because he doesn't even seem to know what he's doing or what he wants to do. So he's trying to get his friend laid. Successfully, he does. Almost. There's a scene in which Simon gets a blowjob in the bathroom, which ends in a hilarious falling out of the bathroom stall and Bren finding out, kind of classic scenario. So that was funny. I enjoyed that. And then we start meeting up with some other characters that we haven't seen for, I think, maybe 1 or 2 issues. We see the Alpha brothers shaking down some other people for protection money. And we also see another character that we haven't seen in a while, which I believe his name is Kian. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this character's name, but he's that awesome guy that was on the motocross bike and he did this sick-ass jump. But what he's doing is actually crippling the funds of the Alpha brothers. So there's that storyline that happens. And he also breaks into Simon Cook's house for some reason. I have a feeling that there's some sort of history between him and Simon. And also Annabella is kind of going on her own investigation on who a mysterious figure was in her club on the night of her, kicking out that one prostitute that was soliciting this one guy. But that's all that really happens. The only other thing that happens at the end is that the mayor of Saturn City is introduced. This comic really leaves us with a lot of questions. It sets up a lot of things, but there's not a lot of payoff, which I think is probably one of my biggest problems with this. First, I just want to go through what I thought was good. I thought the art was good as usual. I feel like there should be a little bit more landscape shots in this because the artist really does do landscapes pretty well. But still, everything, all the other art is pretty solid. Definitely enjoying the art. The writing, for the most part, it's okay. It seems to be slipping. But I really want to go to the parts that I thought were, bad or my gripes with this comic book. It seems that this series is really kind of losing focus of what it wants to do. It seems very random. It just seems like these are just random events in the character's, kind of life. And it almost seems like this comic book has no direction. It has as much direction as the character Simon Cook has. And I really think it's losing focus of what it's trying to do. And that's kind of annoying. We need to get back on track on what we think. It seems that it establishes, from the last issue, there was something established in the 4th issue, and they don't really touch on it at all in the second one, and it's literally like the moment after that. So it's really losing focus on what it wants to do as a series, and the story seems to be, kind of dull, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and that's really frustrating as a reader. And one thing that I think saves this, and it's not even about the comic book, it's something that happens in the back, is Joe Casey has this kind of like male, fan mail section called Dirty Talk. Yes, I know it's pretty funny, but there's a specific section. I'll put it on the screen, but go ahead and read that, and it's probably the funniest entry I've ever read in Dirty Talk throughout the 5 issues that I've been out of Sex. It is absolutely hilarious. So definitely check that out. Overall, Sex issue number 5 gets a 3.5 out of 5. I am gonna keep on continuing with the series. Hopefully, it gets back on track, and we kind of go back to the fundamentals of what this series is trying to do. Our next comic book is The Wake, issue number 3. This continues the Wake, limited series. It's out of 10, so this is 3 out of 10. So let's see what we have in store for this issue of The Wake. So last issue, we kind of got a sense of what this creature can do and what its powers are, but now we get more of an explanation. But still not a fully realized explanation, but it still is a terrifying explanation. It seems to me that this creature can spray you with some sort of substance that goes into your eyes, and then you start hallucinating. There's a lot of hallucinations in this issue. I believe it's Claire. She sees her son Parker in the opening kind of scenes, but she is saved by Cruz, and everyone in the kind of research wing of the rig is evacuating because the creature is loose, and it's hunting the scientists, and vice versa. They're trying to hunt it down, trying to protect themselves, and we really see the vicious attacks that this creature is doing. There's some really good scenes of horror in this. I mean, with a writer like Scott Snyder, he definitely does deliver on horror elements and dialogue and story. So once they finally get out of the flooded area of this rig, they have a plan to kind of get back into their submarine. So they go outside, and a certain event happens that I won't tell you, but that is the end. So what did I like about this issue? First, it was terrifying, which is good for a series like this. This is definitely like a horror-themed book. Another thing that Scott Snyder does very well, and in this issue, and hopefully throughout the rest of the series, but specifically in this issue, is the characterization of each character, of course, and just one person I'd like to highlight, of course, is Meeks. He's such a badass. Goes out like a badass. I don't think he's really dead, but he's going where and he's like fighting the creature. Just shooting it up, and the really good action scenes. This really well paced. This issue has a lot of like oh shit moments. I can't believe that just happened. Especially I think maybe in the first couple pages. There's a specific point that happens where I believe Claire tries to go after Bob, and something happens with him, and then the very end of this comic, leaves you with the oh shit moment that's really gonna make me pick up the 4th issue, and probably continue on until all the way to the final issue, issue number 10. And Scott Snyder's just doing an excellent job. He's proving that he knows how to write horror and write it well. So let's talk about the other good, which of course is the illustration, the art. Oh, it's just brilliant. It's perfect. It's perfect for this comic book. Everything is dark, gritty. The creature is terrifying. You can definitely see the emotions in people's faces. They are actually terrified. Beautiful colors everywhere. The art just fits so perfectly with this comic series. And Sean Murphy slowly becoming one of my favorite artists, currently. Like, if I had like a top 10, he's slowly creeping into the top 10. And I'm so impressed with the art. Anything bad? Nothing. The Wake, issue number 3, gets a 5 out of 5. If you aren't reading The Wake and you're a fan of horror, what the fuck are you doing? Yep. Meeks is a badass. A Splinter Cell badass. Our next comic book is a new series from Vertigo, and it's called Collider, written by Simon Oliver with art by Robbie Rodriguez. So let's see what this new series has to offer. So the comic book opens with this man in this vehicle. I think kind of like a weather van. Uh, I think he's going after some sort of tornado, but he's making a videotape to his son, and we see that in the present day, we assume that this is his son, which it actually is. We learn about that deeper into the comic, but we're introduced to this new character, and his name is Adam, and Adam is a part of a new group of kind of I guess law enforcers or special organizations. Yeah, it's a better word. Special organizations known as the FBP, the Federal Bureau of Physics. Because in this world, there's a huge sort of paradigm shift where physics doesn't know what the fuck it wants to do, and physics is as random as ever. And we find out that there's this high school where the gravity just all of a sudden just fails. Students are just kind of floating in the air. There's benches floating in the air. And that's when the FBP comes in, and we be introduced to these new kind of main characters, which are agents of the FBP. That's going to be really hard to say because I'm so used to FBI. But anyways, the FBP are brought in, and they use a device called a CNC, which I think is a compression and something. I don't know what that is, but I don't know what the other term that is, but I'll figure it out soon. Oh, and I just actually went to the page that has it. It's a compaction and compression unit, and essentially they put it there, and they create kind of like a temporal gravity field, and they send in basically, Adam into this thing, and I don't know what he's doing, but I guess he's kind of like sewing it back up together. I think they kind of use that term like they're sewing it or like stitching it together permanently, so loss of gravity isn't a thing. But after that, things go wrong, and Adam is basically floating all the way up to the sky, and will he make it? And will Adam be able to, get himself out of this, unscathed? And what other, anomalies are going to happen that have, physics involved? I guess we're going to have to see in the next issue. So we can talk about right now what I liked. I think the concept and the premise, I think it's interesting. Definitely, this definitely seems like it's a promising series. It seems very kind of quirky in its nature, but I definitely enjoyed it. The art for the most part is pretty good. There's a couple of scenes in the first couple pages where Adam's neck is a little bit too tall, a little bit too giraffe. But regardless, Collider is still a solid start to a pretty interesting concept. I'm going to give Collider issue number 1 a 4 out of 5. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where this goes. It's always nice to see new and fresh ideas coming to, comic books. And I think Vertigo has a potential great series on their hand. Our next comic book is Batman Annual issue number 2. Batman Annual issue number 1 really focused on Mr. Freeze and his debut into the New 52 comics. And this one is supposed to be a special 0-year tie-in. And something I think a little bit more importantly, it is the writing debut of co-writer Marguerite Bennett, which is a student of Scott Snyder's. So let's see how she did. The comic opens with a new Arkham Asylum orderly called Eric Border, who gets a new inmate who is Batman. Now, why is Batman in Arkham Asylum basically, with cuffs on his hands? I guess we're going to have to find out. We cut to 2 hours before this, and we see that why Eric is taking the job and how he's transferred from Metropolis, and he wants to basically, he thinks there's a lot of good to be done. So we do see his motives, but the main reason when we get back is we need to focus on Batman, and what Batman is trying to do is he's testing out a new wing called the Tartarus wing, and this is like Tartarus refers to the place that's below hell, like the extreme hell, like hell of hell, like the most hardcore place under hell, essentially. So the Tartarus wing is like the most dangerous place in Arkham Asylum. So Batman is testing out all the security measures to make sure that it is villains proof. And it's very interesting to see Batman think like his villains and essentially, counteract everything that the prison is trying to do. But while Batman's being a badass, we get introduced to a new character called the Anchorist. She is the oldest living Arkham Asylum patient. I say patient because back when she was younger, she was in an accident that caused her the death of her parents, but also gave her the ability to phase through walls and matter, also leaving her disfigured, kind of looking like the Crypt Keeper. But she goes to Arkham Asylum in the late couple of early stages when it used to be a place of healing. But now in today's society, because of Batman, it is a place of punishment. So she's going after Batman because he indirectly, or even directly, caused the downfall of Arkham Asylum, which is very interesting. But once she gets her hands on Batman, she puts him in a kind of like a mental cage, just showing Batman all of the horrible things that have happened in his life, from the death of his parents to the death of his son. But while that happens, and Batman kind of breaks out of that trance, that kind of mental cage that he's being put under, he escapes to the roof. Also, he gets followed by the Anchorist, and they kind of have a one-off on the roof. But Batman can tell that this is a very broken person, and even ultimately, they're kind of two broken people. So Batman, out of pity, just leaves, and Eric comes in behind her and kind of takes her in, and he's kind of an ideologist, and he thinks he can help her. Hopefully he can, but that's where the comic ends. I think at that point, Batman is just so mentally exhausted from what he went through in the kind of mental cage that he's been put through that he just doesn't care. He can't even be asked to do it. So he leaves, and that's the end of that. So what did I like about this comic? Let's talk about the writing. Really good debut for Marguerite Bennett, and also a really good job from Scott Snyder. Both of these guys really, both of these guys and gals have did a great job at doing writing. It really delves deep into what makes Arkham Asylum, and it sort of implies that Batman, in his own way, could be a villain in a certain situation like this, which is very interesting story, really good dialogue. I like how Batman's just kind of earlier on he's kind of facing all the defenses and counteracting it, saying like, oh, if Mr. Freeze was here, he would just he would freeze this bridge or like destroy it, or like if Bane were here, he would find a weakness and exploit it. So that was really interesting. It's good to see that Batman does think like the enemy. The only bad in this, it's not really a bad, but it's a more like a something I'd like to see. The art could have been a little bit better. Wes Craig does some pretty good work, but I knew if this was illustrated by Greg Capullo, this would have been incredible. It's just you get so many issues of Greg Capullo's art, especially some of the especially when it comes to like horror element things, such as when I kept on imagining Joker's face every time I look at the Anchorist's face. When I looked at her, it kind of reminded me of Joker and how grotesque Greg Capullo would write, or not even write, he would draw all these horrific kind of like facial features, and I just really wish that Greg Capullo would come onto this. When you really have so many issues of Greg Capullo and then you go to someone else, it's kind of like Flaming Young versus Hamburger Helper, I don't want to get too Jay-Z on everyone, but anyways, I'm gonna give Batman Annual issue number 2 a 4.5 out of 5. Really strong story. I really wish the art could have matched the strength of the storytelling and the dialogue, and the different themes that they kind of incorporate into this comic. Uh, it's one of those situations where I wish the art was a little bit better, but it's definitely not bad art. Don't get me wrong. Our next comic book is Trinity of Sin, Pandora, issue number 2. So after the kind of prelude that the first issue was, let's see what the next issue is. So this is in fact a tie-in with the Trinity War, and this ties in just after the other tie-in that was Constantine issue number 5. So here's how the comic goes. We know that Pandora is trying to open Pandora's box, which is the skull that she has. So instead of trying to find the purest of heart, she's gonna find the darkest of heart, and who has the most darkest heart she can think of? Well, it's none other than Vandal Savage. So she goes after Savage, essentially pursuing him and other members of the secret society. She definitely doesn't want to fight them, but they do see Pandora coming, so they do have kind of a fight scene, and that's always fun. Gigant is there, so she turns huge. But once the smoke clears, Pandora asks Vandal to open the Pandora's box, but he can't, which is really interesting. And there seems to be a little bit of, consciousness or empathy, or even like some small, tiny shred of, goodness in Vandal Savage, which I think was interesting. So it leads me to even a bigger question: who's truly the darkest, the darkest heart in the DC universe? That's very interesting that we're probably gonna figure out in later coming issues, maybe in other issues of Pandora. But really, that's essentially it. She goes and tries to get it open via Vandal Savage. It doesn't work, and at the end, Argus and Shade are now working together to bring in Pandora, or to liquidate her. So yeah, those two agencies are working together, kind of creating a huge, I guess essentially a team up. So it's gonna be interesting to see both of those huge, intelligence agencies working together. So what did I like about this issue? I like the actual storyline of what happened. Vandal Savage not being able to open the box. That's an interesting plot point. I think I like the character of Pandora. She seems like a bigger player than anyone in the Trinity War. She seems that it seems to me that she could be an even bigger part of what's going on, and it does seem like that. Not even if she has the actual Pandora's box, but she does seem like an interesting character. Even with one issue of backstory, I still find her character very interesting. Another good art was pretty solid. It was a little bit better than last issue, but I liked last issue's designs a little bit more because we got to see all of the 7 deadly sins and their reincarnations. But still, this issue was very solid. The only thing, not really anything too bad. I think this issue ended a little bit too fast, but still, honestly, I don't really care. I think that issue number 2 did a good job at making a point, and I think that point was Vandal Savage can't open the box. So I think I'm going to give Trinity of Sin, Pandora, issue number 2, a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was pretty good. But I think it definitely needs to step up its A game when it comes to, the quality that the Trinity War books are, producing. We're looking at writers like Jeff Lemire and Jeff Johns, and different artists just really bringing their A game. And we really need Pandora, the actual Pandora comic, to be at that level or close to it. But right now it's teetering off being close and not so close. So hopefully we get the same quality as the other Trinity books. Our next comic book is X-Men, issue number 3. So let's see what our gang of all-female X-Men is doing in this week's issue of X-Men. So the comic opens with the entire team in the X-Jet planning on where they have to go next, and they're going to Budapest. It seems that Akira has controlled Karma's body. She's the Omega Sentinel, and she's taking her all the way to the hospital where she crash landed. It's not exactly where she crash landed, but it's near the vicinity. But she goes there for a reason, and I'll tell you what that reason is for. But back at the the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, we see last issue that there was supposedly a timer that went off, and we deal with the aftermath of that. Apparently, it wasn't a bomb, but our team that Kitty Pryde is leading still has to deal with basically Akira kind of controlling the Danger Room bots and essentially attacking them. So while they're facing off against the Danger Room bots that are controlled by Akira, back in Budapest, we have our team, the all-female X-Men team. I'll just call them X-Women for this remainder of the review. So the X-Women are there, and like I said, for a reason, Akira's there because she's basically picking up pieces of herself from this hospital that treats people who are inflicted. I think maybe they have almost like cybernetic implants, so she can essentially control everyone in that entire hospital. So they get into a big battle, and there's a huge confrontation at the end. Will they be able to save Karma or not? And will Kitty Pryde be able to stop the Danger Room droids from essentially killing almost everyone in the in the school? And will Kitty Pryde be able to find a way to disable the security system, therefore stopping Akira? You're gonna have to read to find out. So let's talk about what I liked. Writing was really good. Really good characterization. Everyone felt like they were. I really liked the characterization of the female characters. Very strong roles. I think this series has done really well at writing females, and they definitely feel really, really fun and really very strong characters, and that's always good. Everyone seems to have a good stance in this, especially the strongest performance coming from our X-Women, if you will. The art is really solid. I really like that. There's definitely an interesting kind of conflict that happens at the very end. Especially, I like the hospital fight scene. That was really interesting. The only bad I would have to say, I felt like the storyline was really rushed for some reason. This is like a three out of 3 parts. And I say that this was rushed because this issue really felt like it was picking up steam. It felt like we were in the middle of like a big story arc. I wish we had maybe 1 or 2 issues more of this story arc to continue, but it does get concluded pretty nicely. So I'm going to give X-Men issue number 3 a 4 out of 5. Enjoyed the art. Writing was solid. Just I thought it was a little bit too rushed, unfortunately. But still, X-Men continues to be a interesting series, and I will definitely be continuing to pick it up. And our last comic book of the podcast is Guardians of the Galaxy issue number 5. Let's see how they introduce Angela in this issue. So the comic opens up with Angela kind of coming out of the space-time continuum, I'm assuming, or one of the torn realities, as we've seen in Age of Ultron. If you haven't been reading Age of Ultron, you're probably going to be lost. It almost seems detrimental that even if you are reading Guardians of the Galaxy and you're not even reading anything of like Age of Ultron or have no clue what Age of Ultron is, it doesn't do anything to really help you. But regardless, Peter is in this kind of different sector away from the Guardians, and he meets up with Mantis, and he's asking her, what the hell happened? I had this, strange feeling. And as you can see, it's what happened to the the realities. Like he saw all the different realities, and they kind of collapsed on each other and broke and ripped and teared. And while he's trying to figure out who knows what's going on, we meet up with Tony Stark, Gamora, Rocket, and Groot, who are flying through space, just kind of laid back, just hanging out. And then they see Angela, and then Gamora and Angela get into a conflict. And meanwhile, we figure out who Peter goes after for knowledge about what happened to the time stream. And I won't spoil who the character is. It's very interesting. I can see how this person knows a lot about the realities and time. It's definitely interesting character. We can talk about the good writing. The banter was really funny between Rocket Raccoon and Tony Stark. Really strong dialogue, especially with like I said, the banter was really funny. Art, Sarah Pichelli, awesome art. I loved her in Ultimate Comics Spider-Man. I think she's a really great artist. Really, really good art in this. Some of the bad I'd like to illustrate right now. It seems as though if this doesn't really fit into the continuity that they're doing with the Guardians of the Galaxy, this doesn't really deal with what happened last issue. I feel like deviating from the Prime Directive, and I kind of really liked where the story was going before this issue. So I think when it comes to dealing with the Age of Ultron and Angela as a character, her being put into the actual this comic, it seems she was kind of just shoved in there wholeheartedly, and it doesn't really seem to fit in with what Guardians of the Galaxy was doing before this issue. It seems really all of a sudden she's just there. I know they try, but it somewhat fails. I'm going to give Guardians of the Galaxy issue number 5 a 3.5 out of 5. I still thought it was good. Don't get me wrong, except that one thing. It's just, I feel like Age of Ultron, everything you're doing with Age of Ultron, it's not really fitting in with this actual comic itself. I feel like there needs to be some different way you need to introduce Angela into the actual, Marvel universe properly, and definitely better than this issue tried to do. And that's it for the Comic Book Time podcast. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to show me some support by liking and subscribing. Also, if you want to check out the previous podcast, I'll have the annotation on the screen, and also annotations to one of my videos I did earlier this week, which was my first impressions on the newest Injustice DLC character, Martian Manhunter. Also, check me out on Google Plus and Soundcloud if you just want the Comic Book Time podcast in an audio format. So definitely check all of those links out. My name's Aaron, and I will see you next time.